Mohamed Salah believed he was simply heading into a straightforward TV interview. But little did he know, a meticulously crafted ambush awaited him. It was a calculated attempt to publicly humiliate him in front of millions. The host, known throughout the industry for his ruthless tactics, had meticulously planned everything to corner Salah with aggressive questions and, even worse, embarrassing video clips. However, what unfolded next left everyone utterly speechless. Stay tuned until the very end, and please let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. We truly love hearing from you. Mohamed Salah was at home, in his quiet living room, savoring a rare and precious moment of peace. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, breaking the tranquility. It was a message from his agent, Karim, who had just forwarded an invitation from one of the most notoriously controversial talk shows on television. "Salah, they want you on the spotlight next week," Karim announced over the phone, his voice carrying a hint of apprehension. Salah raised an eyebrow, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "Isn't that the show where they deliberately try to embarrass their guests? All for ratings?" he questioned, recalling the show's reputation. Karim hesitated for a moment, acknowledging the concern. "Yes, that's true. But Salah, it's also a massive platform. Millions of people tune in. They'll definitely try to provoke you, to get under your skin. But I have complete faith in you. I know you can handle it," he said, trying to sound encouraging, though Salah could sense the underlying worry. Salah leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. He had faced immense pressure throughout his career, on the grandest stages of soccer, Champions League finals, intense World Cup qualifiers, and in countless hostile stadiums where the crowd was vehemently against him. Could a TV presenter, armed with pre-prepared questions and video clips, really shake him? He pondered this, a slight smile playing on his lips. A few hours later, the internet was ablaze with speculation. The show's host, Mark Daniels, a man known for his confrontational style, had posted a cryptic message online. "Next week, we're bringing a so-called soccer legend to the test. Is he really that great? We're about to find out. Don't miss it." Fans immediately began speculating, their comments and tweets flooding social media. Some were genuinely excited at the prospect of seeing Salah on the show, eager to hear his insights and perspectives. However, others were deeply worried, sensing that he was walking straight into a carefully laid trap, orchestrated by a host known for his ruthless approach. In the days that followed, rumors swirled like a desert wind. Journalists and sports analysts debated endlessly about the kind of questions Mark Daniels would hurl at Salah. Would he relentlessly bring up missed penalties, those agonizing moments every player dreads? Would he unfairly compare him to soccer icons like Messi and Ronaldo, setting him up for inevitable criticism? The anticipation was palpable, a mixture of excitement and trepidation hanging in the air. The night before the interview, Salah sat with his family, the warmth of their love a comforting shield against the looming pressure. He watched his daughter, Lily, her face alight with pure joy, as she laughed at a cartoon playing on TV. A gentle smile touched Salah's lips as he observed her innocent happiness. "They might try to break me tomorrow," he thought quietly, a steely resolve hardening his gaze. "But they have no idea what I've already overcome. They don't know the battles I've already fought and won." He wasn't going on Mark Daniels' show for Mark Daniels himself, nor was he seeking controversy or drama. He was going for a far greater purpose. A deeper reason resonated within him. He was going because he felt, in the depths of his heart, that the world needed to witness what true strength, quiet resilience, and unwavering dignity actually looked like. The bright studio lights shone intensely on Mohamed Salah as he adjusted his microphone, the warmth almost uncomfortable on his skin. The polite applause from the studio audience began to fade as Mark Daniels, the host, leaned forward, a practiced smirk playing on his lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mark announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "we have a very special guest with us tonight. A man who has supposedly conquered the world of soccer. Or has he?" He paused for effect, letting his words hang in the air. Salah, however, remained composed, a polite smile gracing his features, completely unfazed by the host's opening jab. Mark continued, dramatically flipping through his notes as if searching for the most devastating question. "Mohamed," he began, his tone laced with false sincerity, "let's be honest here. People call you a legend, but do you truly believe that? Or are you just a good player who happened to get lucky, ending up on the right team at the right time?" A hush fell over the studio audience, an almost tangible silence replacing the earlier polite clapping. Every eye was fixed on Salah, waiting, anticipating his reaction to this blatant provocation. Salah, however, maintained his composure, his gaze steady and calm. "I've worked incredibly hard to get to where I am today," he responded, his voice even and measured. "But it's not up to me to decide who is a legend and who isn't. That's for the fans, for history itself, to ultimately decide." Mark chuckled, a dismissive sound that echoed through the silent studio. "A humble response," he remarked, his smirk widening. "Very convenient. But let's dig a little deeper, shall we?" He turned to the massive screen behind them, gesturing dramatically as a video clip began to play. It was a replay of Salah missing a crucial penalty in a high-stakes international match, the disappointment etched clearly on his face. Another clip followed, this one showing him being substituted off the field after a particularly frustrating performance, his shoulders slumped with visible dejection. "Does watching this," Mark asked, leaning in conspiratorially, his eyes glinting with a predatory gleam, "make you uncomfortable, Mohamed?" Salah watched the screen intently, his expression remaining unreadable throughout the playback of his less than stellar moments. When the clips finally ended, he nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Not at all," he stated calmly, his voice resonating with sincerity. "Failure is simply a part of success. Every great player, every single one, has moments like these, moments they'd rather forget. The real difference, the defining factor, is how you choose to respond to those moments, how you pick yourself up and move forward." Mark's practiced smile faltered for a fleeting second, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Interesting," he conceded, recovering quickly. "But some people, and you must have heard this, some people say you aren't really at the level of Messi or Ronaldo. They say you don't possess the same aura, the same undeniable presence. How do you respond to that?" Salah simply smiled, a genuine warm smile that radiated confidence and inner peace. "I don't play to be compared to anyone else," he stated, his voice clear and strong. "I play to be better than I was yesterday. That's my only competition." A murmur of appreciation rippled through the audience, a subtle shift in the studio's energy. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his chair, finally realizing that his carefully laid trap wasn't working. Salah wasn't falling into it. He had planned to rattle him, to provoke an emotional outburst. But Salah wasn't just answering questions. He was, in fact, slowly but surely, winning over the crowd, captivating them with his quiet strength and thoughtful responses. Mark Daniels smirked again, a thin, forced smile, as he tapped his fingers impatiently on the polished table. He had played this game countless times before. Corner the guest, relentlessly show their worst moments, and then watch them squirm under the intense pressure. It was a tried-and-true formula for generating great television, for sparking controversy and boosting ratings. He wouldn't give up just yet. "Well, Mohamed," he said, leaning back in his chair, adopting a casual, almost dismissive tone. Since you claim to be so uncomfortable with failure, let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? He gestured dramatically, and the studio lights dimmed slightly, casting a dramatic shadow across the set. The massive screen behind them flickered to life once more. The first clip that flashed across the screen showed Salah in a high-stakes match, sprinting towards the goal with incredible speed, only to scuff his shot wide at the very last moment, the ball sailing harmlessly past the post. The camera zoomed in mercilessly on his face, capturing his raw, undisguised devastation. The second clip followed immediately, this time showing him missing a crucial penalty kick for Egypt, his head bowed in utter disappointment as the opposing team erupted in joyous celebration. Then came another and another, Salah being substituted off the field after a string of poor performances, frustration and self-reproach etched deeply into his features. The studio audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, quickly dying away in the heavy silence. Others watched in tense silence, their eyes glued to the screen, waiting with bated breath to see how Salah would finally react to this relentless barrage of negativity. Mark turned back to him, a wide, almost predatory grin plastered across his face. "Not exactly your highlight reel, is it, Mohamed?" he sneered, relishing what he believed was his moment of triumph. Salah sat motionless, his fingers lightly interlocked in front of him, his posture unchanged. He exhaled slowly, deliberately, then finally looked directly at Mark, his gaze calm and steady. "You've played soccer before, right, Mark?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Mark raised an eyebrow, momentarily thrown off balance by the unexpected question. "Not professionally," he stammered, slightly confused. "Then let me explain something to you," Salah said, turning slightly towards the studio audience, engaging them directly. "In this sport, in soccer, you fail far more often than you succeed. You miss chances, sometimes crucial ones. You lose games, even important ones. That's simply the nature of soccer. That's football." Mark chuckled again, a dismissive sound that betrayed his growing unease. "But don't great players, the true legends, rise above all that?" he challenged, trying to regain control of the narrative. "Don't they deliver when it truly matters, in those critical moments?" Salah nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Of course," he agreed, his tone measured and sincere. "Of course they do. But do you know what every single legend in this sport has in common?" he asked, gesturing towards the screen where his failures had just been replayed. "They all have clips just like these. Missed penalties, tough nights on the field, games they desperately wish they could replay and change the outcome. The real difference, the thing that truly sets them apart, is that they didn't allow these moments to define them, to break them, to stop them from striving for greatness." A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience once more, the energy in the studio subtly but undeniably shifting. Mark shifted in his seat, sensing his carefully constructed narrative beginning to crumble. Salah continued, his voice gaining strength and conviction with each word. "You showed a missed penalty, Mark. What you conveniently didn't show was the very next game, where I scored twice. You showed me frustrated, being subbed off after a poor performance. But you didn't show the countless times I played through pain, through injury, to help my team win, to fight for every single point." Applause started softly, tentatively at first, a single clap here and there. Then, it began to grow, spreading through the studio like wildfire, becoming louder and more sustained, until it was a powerful wave of appreciation washing over the set. Mark forced another smile, though this one was tighter, more strained than before. "That's a nice speech, Mohamed," he conceded, his tone grudging, But let's be real here. You're a great player, sure. No one's denying that. But there are levels to greatness, aren't there? Do you honestly, truly think you belong in the same conversation, the same breath, as legends like Messi or Ronaldo? The room fell completely silent once more, the weight of the question hanging heavy in the air. Salah took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering, then looked Mark directly in the eye, his expression calm but resolute. "I don't play soccer to be compared to anyone, Mark," he stated, his voice ringing with conviction. "I play to inspire, to make my country proud, to give absolutely everything I have for my team, every single time I step onto that pitch. Whether that ultimately makes me a legend or not, well, time will be the ultimate judge of that." A few members of the audience began to clap again, spontaneously, drawn in by his sincerity and quiet passion. Then more joined in, the applause growing louder, more enthusiastic, until it filled the studio once more. Mark's smile twitched again, almost imperceptibly. He wasn't just losing control of the interview. He had already lost it, completely and utterly. But, ever the showman, he wasn't quite done yet. "All right, fair enough," he said, forcing a chuckle, attempting to sound lighthearted, though the tension in his voice was palpable. "But let's test that humility of yours a little bit more, shall we?" The tension in the room remained high, a palpable undercurrent of anticipation and unspoken emotion. Salah simply sat back, his posture relaxed but alert, prepared for whatever carefully crafted provocation Mark Daniels might throw at him next. Mark leaned forward again, tapping his fingers against the desk, a nervous habit betraying his inner frustration. He had seriously underestimated Salah's composure, his quiet strength. The soccer star hadn't fallen into any of his carefully laid traps, hadn't lashed out in anger, hadn't given him the viral moment of frustration and humiliation he had so desperately hoped for. But Mark Daniels was nothing if not persistent. He had one last play, one final card to play. "Let me ask you something, Mohamed," Mark said, tilting his head slightly, adopting a deceptively casual tone. "People call you a legend, a role model, an inspiration. But let's be brutally honest here, just between you and me. Do you really believe all that hype? Or are you just a decent player, perhaps a bit above average, who just happened to be in the right place at the right time, benefiting from circumstance and luck?" The room fell utterly silent, the quiet so profound you could almost hear the studio lights humming. The question was deliberately designed to humiliate, to force Salah into a corner, to make him either defensively and arrogantly defend his own achievements, or to uncomfortably downplay them, diminishing his own hard-earned success. Either way, Mark fully expected him to finally slip up, to reveal a crack in his carefully maintained composure. Salah, however, didn't react immediately. He allowed the weight of Mark's loaded words to settle in the room, to hang in the air like a thick fog. He could feel every single eye in the studio boring into him, some waiting with bated breath for a fiery rebuttal, others bracing themselves for the worst, anticipating a moment of public embarrassment. He finally exhaled slowly, deliberately, and leaned forward slightly, his fingers still loosely clasped together, his gaze steady and direct. "Mark," he began, his voice calm and measured, cutting through the silence like a warm knife through butter. "What exactly makes a legend?" Mark blinked, genuinely caught off guard by the unexpected question, his carefully prepared script momentarily forgotten. What do you mean?" he stammered, thrown off his rhythm. "I mean, how do you define it, Mark?" Salah continued, his tone still steady, almost conversational. "Is it simply the number of goals scored, the trophies collected, the fleeting fame and media attention? Because if that's truly all it takes to become a legend, then soccer would be overflowing with hundreds, perhaps even thousands of legends. But we both know, deep down, that that's simply not true, is it? Mark shifted uncomfortably in his chair again, his carefully constructed facade beginning to crumble under the weight of Salah's quiet, thoughtful challenge. So, what is your definition then, Mohamed? He asked, his voice losing some of its earlier bravado, replaced by a hint of genuine curiosity. Salah gave a small, almost wistful smile, a gentle expression that conveyed a depth of understanding far beyond his years. A legend isn't just about winning, Mark, he explained, his voice resonating with sincerity. It's about how you inspire others. It's about how you lift up those around you, how you face seemingly insurmountable challenges, not just when you're at your absolute best, when everything is going your way, but especially when the whole world seems to be against you, when doubt and negativity are swirling all around you. The studio audience was completely silent, utterly captivated, hanging on to every single word Salah uttered. Mark cleared his throat, the sound echoing loudly in the stillness, attempting to regain some semblance of control. All right, he conceded, pushing forward. But there are plenty of players who inspire, Mohamed. What makes you so different? Why should you be considered anything more than just another talented player? That's a fair question, Mark. Salah nodded, acknowledging the validity of the challenge. Let me tell you a story, if I may. He adjusted his seat slightly, turning to face Mark directly, his gaze intense and unwavering. When I was just a child, growing up in Egypt, I had to endure a grueling 4-hour bus ride every single day just to get to training. My parents, bless their hearts, sacrificed absolutely everything, their time, their money, their own comfort, so that I could have even the smallest chance, just a sliver of an opportunity, to make it, to pursue my dream. I wasn't the biggest kid. I wasn't naturally the fastest or the strongest, but I had something inside me, something that no one, no matter how hard they tried, could ever take away from me. My unwavering belief, my absolute conviction that I could and would do more, achieve more than anyone ever expected. Mark leaned back slightly in his chair, his expression shifting from confrontational to something approaching genuine interest, drawn in by the raw emotion and sincerity in Salah's voice. And when I finally moved to Europe, Salah continued, his voice gaining strength and passion, people, so many people, said I wouldn't make it. They said I was too small, too weak, too ordinary. When I struggled at Chelsea, when things didn't go as planned, they said, "See, we told you, he's simply not good enough." And when we lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid, that devastating defeat, they said, "He's not strong enough, not mentally tough enough to win the big one." But I never, not for a single moment, allowed those negative words, those doubts and criticisms, to define me, to dictate my path, to limit my potential. Salah's voice, though still calm and measured, now resonated with an undeniable intensity, a quiet fire burning beneath the surface. "You see, Mark," he explained, his gaze sweeping across the studio audience, connecting with each person individually. "I don't play soccer to be compared to others, to constantly measure myself against some arbitrary yardstick of greatness. I don't wake up every morning thinking, am I as good as Messi or Ronaldo today? That's simply not my motivation, not what drives me, not what fuels my passion." He gestured towards the audience, his voice softening with genuine emotion. "I play for the kid watching this right now, the young boy or girl who thinks their dreams are too big, too impossible, too far out of reach. I play for that boy back in Egypt, still taking that same long, arduous bus ride, day after day, wondering, hoping, praying, if he'll ever actually make it. I play for my family, for my people, for my team, for the millions of fans who believe in me, who support me through thick and thin. The applause started again, hesitant at first, a few scattered claps breaking the silence. Then, it swelled rapidly, growing into a thunderous ovation, a powerful expression of respect and admiration that shook the studio. Mark forced a tight, strained smile, his frustration barely concealed beneath a thin veneer of professionalism. "That's a nice speech, Mohamed," he repeated, his voice sounding hollow and unconvincing. "But it still doesn't answer the question, does it? Do you think you're a legend?" Salah chuckled softly, a warm, genuine sound that filled the studio and put everyone at ease. "That's really not for me to say, Mark," he replied, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "That's for time and history and the fans to ultimately decide." The applause erupted once more, even louder than before, a deafening roar of appreciation. Mark, finally realizing he had completely and utterly lost control of the narrative, quickly turned to the camera, forcing a bright, almost manic smile. "Well, there you have it, folks," he announced, his voice strained. "Mohamed Salah, the man, the myth, maybe, the legend." He forced a laugh that sounded hollow and unconvincing, but the energy in the room had irrevocably shifted. Salah had somehow, almost imperceptibly, turned the entire interview on its head, transforming it into something Mark Daniels had never intended, never anticipated. It wasn't about humiliation anymore, about manufactured controversy and cheap ratings. It had become something far more profound, far more meaningful. It was about resilience, about legacy, about the quiet strength of character that shines brightest under pressure. And in that moment, it was crystal clear to everyone watching, both in the studio and at home, that Mohamed Salah had already won, decisively and unequivocally. Mark Daniels tapped his pen against the desk, the rhythmic clicking echoing his inner turmoil, his frustration barely concealed behind a forced, professional smile. He had utterly underestimated Salah. That much was painfully obvious. The soccer star had gracefully dodged every single trap he had laid, turned every attempt at public humiliation into a moment of quiet wisdom, of unexpected grace under fire. But Mark Daniels, ever the tenacious showman, wasn't quite finished yet. He refused to concede defeat so easily. "All right, Mohamed," Mark said, shifting in his seat, adopting a new tactic, a slightly more conciliatory tone. "I'll give you credit where credit is due. You handle pressure remarkably well. But let's talk about something else, shall we? Something a little different." He paused for effect, letting his words hang in the air, a new line of attack forming in his mind. "Some people, and these are often the harshest critics, some people say you don't quite possess the personality of a true soccer icon. They say you lack that certain charisma." Salah raised an eyebrow slightly, a subtle indication of his interest, his calm demeanor never wavering. "Charisma?" he repeated, prompting Mark to elaborate. Mark nodded, leaning forward conspiratorially. "Charisma," he affirmed. "Look at players like Cristiano Ronaldo, for example. He commands attention effortlessly. He's loud, confident, almost flamboyant. People hang on his every word, captivated by his sheer presence. But you're reserved, Mohamed. Quiet. Some might even say, a little boring. Do you honestly think that quiet demeanor, that lack of overt charisma, holds you back, in any way, from achieving true legendary status?" The question hung in the air, deliberately provocative, clearly meant to sting, to finally elicit a defensive or emotional reaction from Salah. Salah tilted his head slightly, considering his response carefully, thoughtfully. never rushing, never losing his composure. "Tell me something, Mark," he said finally, his voice calm and measured, cutting through the manufactured tension. "When you think of a leader, a truly effective leader, what comes to mind? What qualities do you immediately associate with true leadership?" Mark hesitated, momentarily thrown off balance by Salah's counter-question, his carefully prepared line of questioning disrupted. "Well," he stammered, thinking on his feet, "someone who inspires people, I suppose. Someone who makes an impact, who can rally others around a common goal." Salah nodded slowly, thoughtfully, acknowledging Mark's somewhat generalized answer. "Exactly," he agreed, his voice gentle but firm. "And there's more than one way to do that, isn't there, Mark? More than one style of leadership, more than one way to inspire and motivate others?" He shifted slightly in his chair, his posture relaxed, yet undeniably firm, his gaze steady and unwavering. "Some leaders lead with their voice, with grumpy speeches and passionate pronouncements. They command attention through sheer force of personality, through their outward displays of confidence and charisma. But others," he continued, his voice softening, "others lead with their actions. I was raised to believe, Mark, that a man doesn't necessarily need to shout, to be loud and demonstrative, in order to be truly strong. True strength, real leadership, is often shown in how he carries himself, in his quiet dignity, in his unwavering resolve, in the consistent example he sets for others through his actions, not just his words." A low murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, a subtle but significant shift in their perception of Salah and of true leadership itself. Mark exhaled slowly through his nose, pushing forward, refusing to fully concede defeat. "But soccer is also entertainment, Mohamed. Let's not forget that. Fans crave passion. They want to see raw emotion, explosive displays of feeling. Some critics, and they are out there, believe you don't show enough of that you don't excite people, the way other, more flamboyant players do." Salah's expression remained unchanged, his calm demeanor unyielding. "You think passion is solely about how outwardly expressive you are, Mark?" he questioned, his voice gentle but challenging. Mark shrugged, a gesture of forced nonchalance. "In a way, yes," he conceded, though his tone lacked conviction. Salah leaned forward slightly, his gaze intensifying, his voice resonating with quiet passion. "Then you've clearly never seen a kid in Cairo, Mark, wearing my jersey, playing in the dusty streets, pretending to be me, dreaming of one day following in my footsteps. You've never witnessed the Egyptian people, millions of them, huddled around television screens, watching me score in a World Cup qualifier, crying tears of pure joy and relief because they had waited 28 long years for that moment, for their nation to finally return to the world stage. That's passion, Mark. Real, genuine passion. It's not about how much noise you make, how loudly you shout your own praises. It's about how much you truly mean to people, how deeply you connect with their hopes, their dreams, their collective identity." A ripple of spontaneous applause spread through the audience once more, growing steadily, fueled by the raw emotion and undeniable sincerity in Salah's words. Mark's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a subtle clench betraying his inner frustration. He knew, with a growing sense of certainty, that he was losing the room, losing the audience, losing the carefully orchestrated narrative he had so meticulously constructed. Salah continued, his voice unwavering, his message resonating with quiet power. "Soccer isn't about me, Mark, standing in front of cameras, telling people how great I am, how charismatic I supposedly am. It's about stepping onto that pitch, game after game, and proving it, through my actions, through my dedication, through my unwavering commitment to my team and my fans, every single time." And if that's not enough for you, Mark, if that quiet, consistent dedication, that unwavering commitment to excellence, isn't exciting enough, then perhaps, Salah concluded, his gaze steady and direct, maybe you're simply looking at the wrong things, focusing on the superficial noise, and missing the true essence of what it means to be a leader, to be an inspiration, to be a champion. The audience erupted into full, thunderous applause, a standing ovation beginning spontaneously, fueled by a deep sense of respect and admiration for Salah's quiet strength and unwavering integrity. Mark let out a short, forced laugh, clearly uncomfortable, desperately trying to regain some semblance of control. "Well," he said, flipping a page in his notes, his voice strained, "you certainly have a way with words, Mohamed." Mohamed Salah simply smiled again, a warm, genuine smile that conveyed both humility and quiet confidence. Mark sighed audibly, defeated, and tried one last, desperate angle, a final attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of his carefully planned humiliation. "Let's shift gears completely, shall we, Mohamed?" he said, adopting a new, almost conversational tone. "You've had your fair share of controversies too, haven't you? Over the years, you've been accused of diving, of exaggerating contact, of going down too easily in the penalty box, all in an attempt to win penalties for your team. Some people, and these critics are often quite vocal, say that's simply not what a true professional, a true legend, should do. What do you say to that, Mohamed?" The room tensed once more, the atmosphere shifting abruptly, a palpable undercurrent of anticipation and unease, replacing the earlier warmth and admiration. Salah's reputation, his integrity, had been publicly questioned before, and Mark knew he was finally, perhaps, touching a raw nerve, venturing into potentially dangerous territory. Salah took a deep breath, his fingers lightly tapping against the armrest of his chair, his gaze steady and thoughtful. "Soccer is an incredibly fast game, Mark," he began, his voice calm and measured, devoid of defensiveness. "It's played at lightning speed, in the heat of the moment, with split-second decisions being made constantly. Sometimes, in the midst of that chaos, you get fouled. Sometimes you don't. It's the nature of the game. I've never been the kind of player who looks for excuses, who blames others for my own shortcomings. My job, as I see it, is to play soccer, to give my absolute best on the field, to contribute to my team's success. It's not to argue with referees, to complain about every perceived injustice, to get caught up in endless debates about every single call. But do you think those accusations, those controversies affect your legacy, Mohamed?" Mark pressed, refusing to let go, sensing a potential opening, a possible crack in Salah's seemingly impenetrable composure. Salah met his gaze steadily, his eyes clear and unwavering. "My legacy, Mark," he stated, his voice ringing with quiet conviction, "isn't built on what other people say about me, on fleeting media narratives or biased opinions. It's built on what I do on the field, on my consistent performance, on my dedication to my craft, on the impact I have on my team and my fans. That's the legacy that truly matters to me." The crowd erupted in applause yet again, a spontaneous and heartfelt expression of support and admiration. For the very first time, Mark Daniels looked visibly flustered, his carefully constructed facade finally cracking under the weight of Salah's unwavering composure and quiet dignity. He had tried everything: humiliation, unfair comparisons, manufactured controversy. But Salah had deftly countered every single move, turning each attempt at provocation into a moment of unexpected wisdom and grace. Salah glanced towards the audience, a warm, genuine smile gracing his features, a smile that radiated both humility and quiet strength. "Soccer isn't perfect, Mark," he concluded, his voice softening, almost conversational. "No player is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have moments we regret. We all fall short of our own expectations, from time to time. But I know one thing, with absolute certainty. I've given absolutely everything I have, every ounce of my energy, my passion, my dedication, to this beautiful game. And at the end of the day, when all is said and done, that's truly all that matters. Knowing that I gave it my all, that I left everything on the pitch, that I played with integrity and heart. That's enough for me. The standing ovation began, slowly at first, a few isolated figures rising to their feet, then growing louder and more widespread, until the entire studio audience was on their feet, applauding wildly, a thunderous wave of appreciation washing over Mohamed Salah. Mark forced a strained grin, clearly trying to save face, to salvage some semblance of control from the interview that had so spectacularly backfired. "Well, Mohamed," he conceded, his voice tight, "you certainly know how to handle tough questions. I'll give you that." Salah chuckled softly, a genuine warm sound that filled the studio. "I've handled tougher things in my life, Mark," he replied, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Mark finally extended his hand across the table, a gesture of grudging respect. "All right, Mohamed," he said, his voice strained but sincere. "I'll give you that. Thanks for coming on the show." Salah shook his hand firmly, his grip strong but polite. "Thank you for having me, Mark," he replied simply, his voice devoid of any trace of bitterness or resentment. As the cameras cut, the red light above the lens fading, signaling the end of the live broadcast, the show's producers scrambled to cut to a commercial break, desperate to regain some control of the narrative. But the damage, from Mark's perspective, was already irrevocably done. Mohamed Salah hadn't just survived the interview. He had, against all odds, completely and utterly won it. And the world, Mark knew with a sinking feeling in his stomach, was about to witness it, to dissect it, to celebrate Salah's unexpected triumph. The red light on the camera faded completely, signaling the definitive end of the live broadcast. But the palpable tension in the studio remained, lingering in the air like a thick fog. Mark Daniels unclipped his microphone, forcing a tight-lipped smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes, as he extended a hand towards Salah, a gesture of strained politeness. "Good show, Mohamed," Mark managed to say, his voice sounding strangely strained, lacking its usual confident bravado. Salah shook his hand firmly, his grip polite, but undeniably strong. "Thank you," he replied simply, his expression neutral, giving nothing away. As Salah turned to leave the set, a quiet murmur began to spread through the studio audience, a low hum of excited conversation. Some whispered to each other, their voices hushed with awe and admiration. Others instinctively pulled out their phones, their thumbs already flying across the screens, tweeting and posting about the extraordinary scene they had just witnessed. Mark sat back heavily in his chair, watching as his production team scrambled around him, buzzing with nervous energy. He could already tell, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that this wasn't the reaction he had wanted, not the outcome he had so carefully planned and anticipated. Instead of the usual scathing headlines mocking his guest, ridiculing his every misstep, Mohamed Salah had somehow, almost miraculously, stolen the spotlight, completely and utterly. The crowd wasn't buzzing about Mark's sharp confrontational questioning. They were talking, in hushed and reverent tones, about Salah's quiet dignity, his unwavering composure, his unexpected grace under pressure. One of the show's producers, a young woman in her late 20s, approached him hesitantly, her face etched with a mixture of concern and disbelief. Mark," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "we're already trending everywhere." Mark straightened up abruptly, masking his inner nerves with a forced, dismissive grin. "Good," he said, his voice sounding hollow even to his own ears. That's exactly what we wanted, isn't it? So, what's the headline? What's the buzz? He tried to sound confident, in control, but even he could hear the forced cheerfulness in his own tone. The producer hesitated again, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot, clearly struggling to deliver the unwelcome news. Well, she stammered, it's not exactly what we planned, Mark. It's all about Salah, and not in the way we expected. Mark grabbed his phone, his fingers trembling slightly, and pulled up social media, bracing himself for the worst. His stomach dropped like a stone as he scrolled through the trending topics, the headlines, the endless stream of comments and reactions. Hashtag respect Salah. He read aloud, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Salah owns the interview. Daniels exposed. Mark Daniels tried to humiliate Salah and ended up looking like a complete fool. Salah just gave a masterclass on handling pressure. That's what a real legend truly looks like. The way Salah stayed so calm and dignified, while Mark Daniels got increasingly desperate and aggressive. Utterly embarrassing for the host. He clenched his jaw, his teeth grinding together in frustration and barely concealed rage. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. This wasn't the narrative he had so carefully crafted. Meanwhile, Mohamed Salah walked towards the exit of the studio, his agent, Karim, practically jogging to catch up to him, his face beaming with unrestrained excitement. That was incredible, Salah, Karim exclaimed, barely able to contain his enthusiasm, his voice bubbling over with admiration. Salah simply shrugged, his expression still neutral, almost detached. I just answered his questions, Karim, he replied quietly, his tone understated. Karim shook his head vehemently, his eyes wide with disbelief. No, Salah, you didn't just answer them. You owned him, completely and utterly. That interview is already viral. It's exploding online. People are calling it one of the best, most masterful responses to a hostile interviewer they've ever seen. Ever. He pulled out his phone, thrusting the screen towards Salah, showing him the endless stream of trending posts, the global outpouring of praise and admiration. Salah glanced briefly at the screen, his gaze fleeting, but didn't say much. He had never truly cared about social media hype, about fleeting internet fame. He knew, from long and hard-won experience, just how quickly public opinion could shift, how fickle and unreliable the digital world could be. One day, you were a hero, lauded and celebrated. The next, you were a villain, torn down and vilified. Back inside the studio, Mark Daniels was in full damage control mode, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. He stormed into the production office, slamming the heavy door shut behind him, the sound echoing through the tense and silent room. How did this happen? He snapped, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage, his carefully crafted composure finally shattering. One of the junior producers, a young man barely out of college, hesitated nervously, shrinking back under Mark's withering glare. Mark, he stammered, his voice barely audible. Salah just handled it. Really, really well. He was incredible, actually. Mark exhaled sharply, a frustrated rush of air that betrayed his inner turmoil. I need a follow-up then, he barked, pacing restlessly around the small office. Something, anything, to shift the conversation, to regain control of the narrative. Maybe we say he dodged the real questions, that he avoided the tough issues, that he... His voice trailed off, his desperation palpable. His PR manager, a sharp, experienced woman in her early 40s, sighed quietly, her expression a mixture of sympathy and weary resignation. Mark, she said gently, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't going away." People aren't just praising Salah because he handled it well. They're praising him because he stayed calm, respectful, and dignified, while you, frankly, looked aggressive, almost bullying. And the audience, Mark, the viewers at home, they saw the difference. They understood it perfectly. Mark slumped heavily into his chair, all the fight draining out of him, his earlier bravado replaced by a sense of weary defeat. He rubbed his temples wearily, the weight of the situation finally sinking in. "Damage control," he muttered, his voice low and defeated. "We need damage control." "Book someone else, then. A bigger name, a more controversial figure. We need another story, and we need it fast." But deep down, in the quiet recesses of his mind, Mark Daniels knew the cold, hard truth. This interview, this unexpected and humiliating defeat, would follow him for a long, long time. No matter what he did next, no matter how many bigger names he booked, people would always remember this night, the night Mohamed Salah, with his quiet strength and unwavering dignity, had made him look and feel utterly and completely small. Meanwhile, Mohamed Salah sat in the back seat of his car, watching the city lights of Liverpool blur past the window, the neon glow reflecting in his calm, thoughtful eyes. He didn't need to check his phone, to constantly refresh social media, to know what was happening, to gauge the public reaction. He could feel it, a subtle shift in the collective consciousness, a quiet wave of admiration and respect washing over him. The world had seen his response, witnessed his quiet strength, and that, for Mohamed Salah, was more than enough. He wasn't interested in the fleeting noise of social media, the ephemeral hype and fleeting praise. He had a game to prepare for, a crucial match looming on the horizon, and that, as always, was his primary focus, his unwavering priority. Because that, in the end, was what champions truly did. They focused on the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove themselves, to strive for excellence, regardless of the distractions and noise swirling around them. Mohamed Salah barely had time to fully process the whirlwind of the interview before his phone started buzzing incessantly, a relentless barrage of notifications flooding his screen. Each ping and vibration a reminder of the digital storm he had inadvertently unleashed. Messages poured in, a constant stream of texts and social media alerts from teammates, journalists, and countless friends from around the world. "Bro, you just destroyed that guy." "See," read a text message from a fellow soccer player, punctuated with a string of celebratory emojis. "That was legendary, Salah. Absolutely legendary," another message declared, echoing the sentiment of countless others. Salah sighed quietly, a small, almost imperceptible sound, and locked his phone, silencing the digital clamor. He truly wasn't interested in the drama, the online frenzy, the fleeting validation of social media. For him, the interview, with all its manufactured tension and unexpected outcomes, was already firmly in the past, a closed chapter in his ongoing story. But outside, in the vast and interconnected world, the internet was still buzzing, vibrating with the aftershocks of his quiet triumph. By the time he finally reached home, the digital world had completely exploded, the interview clips spreading like wildfire across every corner of the internet. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, every platform, every social media outlet had its own version of Salah's calm, collected, and unexpectedly powerful responses to Mark Daniels' aggressive and often disrespectful questioning. One clip in particular went undeniably viral, capturing the collective imagination of millions around the globe. It was the moment when Mark Daniels, in his final desperate attempt to corner Salah, had posed The loaded question. Do you really think you're a legend? In the now iconic video clip, Salah's response, delivered with quiet dignity and unwavering conviction, played over and over again, endlessly looped and shared across the digital landscape. That's not for me to say. That's for time to decide. Beneath the clip, the comments flooded in, a tidal wave of admiration and respect. This is why Salah is different, one comment declared, capturing the prevailing sentiment. No ego, just pure class. He didn't even need to insult the host. His composure, his quiet strength, said absolutely everything. Mark Daniels just got completely humbled on his own show in front of millions, another comment proclaimed, echoing the widespread perception of Salah's unexpected victory. This is history in the making. This is what true grace under pressure looks like. This is what a real legend truly is. By morning, the mainstream news outlets had picked up the story, amplifying the online buzz and solidifying Salah's unexpected triumph in the public consciousness. Mohamed Salah silences talk show host with pure class and dignity, one headline declared, capturing the essence of the global narrative. TV analysts dissected the interview frame by frame. Sports journalists praised his unwavering attitude and quiet strength, and even rival players, often quick to criticize and compete, publicly admitted they respected him even more deeply after witnessing how he had handled the intense pressure, the relentless provocation, with such grace and composure. But perhaps the biggest, most unexpected surprise of all came from a truly unexpected source: Mark Daniels himself. The very next evening, in a move that shocked many and surprised even more, Mark Daniels released a short, carefully worded statement on social media, attempting to, in some small way, salvage his own reputation and acknowledge the undeniable impact of Salah's interview. "I may not have expected it," Mark wrote, his tone surprisingly subdued, "but Mohamed Salah taught me something last night. Respect, where it's truly due. See." Some, the more cynical observers, saw it as a transparent attempt at damage control, a calculated move to mitigate the widespread public backlash and salvage his own tarnished image. Others, however, more generous in their interpretation, believed it was a genuine moment of realization, a grudging acknowledgement of Salah's unexpected grace and quiet strength. Either way, the public had already overwhelmingly made up their minds. Mohamed Salah had undeniably won the night, not just the interview, but something far more significant: the hearts and minds of millions around the world. But for Mohamed Salah himself, none of the online frenzy, none of the media hype, none of the fleeting praise truly mattered. He had training to do, a crucial match to prepare for, a team to lead, a goal to chase. Because no matter what the media said, no matter how the internet buzzed and clamored, the only place he truly wanted and needed to prove himself again and again was on the soccer pitch, under the bright stadium lights, doing what he did best: playing the beautiful game with unwavering passion, dedication, and quiet, unyielding strength. A week after the now infamous interview, the online noise, the global conversation, still hadn't died down. Every sports outlet, every news channel, every online platform was still talking about it, dissecting it, analyzing every nuance of Salah's responses, every flicker of emotion on Mark Daniels' face. Fans continued to post about Salah's quiet wisdom, his unwavering composure, his unexpected grace under pressure. Even casual viewers, people who didn't usually follow soccer, who had never watched a game in their lives, were praising his dignity, his resilience, his quiet strength of character. But through it all, amidst the global outpouring of praise and admiration, Mohamed Salah remained remarkably, almost stubbornly, the same. As he arrived at the training ground that morning, his teammates, always quick with a joke and a playful jab, erupted into spontaneous applause, a light-hearted, affectionate tribute to his unexpected triumph. "Superstar," one of them teased, grinning broadly. "Too big for us now, huh, Mohamed? Gonna need an entourage just to walk to the locker room?" Salah laughed, a warm, genuine sound that put everyone at ease. "Relax, guys," he replied, shaking his head with amusement. "I'm still the same guy. Now let's focus, shall we? We have a game to win tonight, remember?" Later that night, in a packed stadium, the roar of the crowd deafening, Mohamed Salah stepped onto the pitch, the familiar green grass stretching out before him like a welcoming embrace. The crowd erupted, chanting his name in unison, a powerful wave of sound washing over him, a testament to their unwavering support and admiration. But they weren't just cheering for a world-class soccer player, a prolific goal scorer, a global icon. They were cheering for something far more profound, far more enduring. They were cheering for what he represented, for the quiet grace under pressure, for the unwavering dignity in the face of adversity, for the quiet strength of character that had shone so brightly in the harsh glare of the television studio lights. The match began, the whistle blowing, the familiar rhythm of the game taking over, and Salah played with his usual intensity, his unwavering focus, his relentless drive to succeed. In the 70th minute of the game, the tension in the stadium almost unbearable, he found himself one-on-one with the opposing goalkeeper, the fate of the match hanging precariously in the balance. He took a deep breath, a slow, deliberate inhale, and in that fleeting moment, 1,000 memories flashed through his mind. The long bus rides of his childhood, the sacrifices of his parents, the relentless doubts and criticisms he had overcome, the quiet strength he had discovered within himself, the unwavering support of his fans, the quiet dignity he had displayed in the face of provocation. And then, with a surge of focused energy, he slotted the ball perfectly into the back of the net, a clean, decisive strike that sent the stadium into absolute pandemonium. The stadium erupted, a deafening roar of pure joy and unbridled celebration, shaking the very foundations of the stands. But Salah didn't celebrate wildly, didn't engage in flamboyant displays of emotion. He simply pointed to the sky, a quiet, understated gesture of gratitude and faith, as he always did, and then jogged calmly back to his position, ready for the next play, the next challenge, the next moment to prove himself. Not with words, but with actions, with unwavering dedication, with quiet, unyielding strength. The next day, the headlines weren't just about his game-winning goal, his latest on-field triumph. They were about something far more significant, far more enduring. Salah proves, once again, that greatness isn't just about talent, it's about character, one headline declared, capturing the essence of the global narrative. Mark Daniels' carefully orchestrated interview, designed to tear him down, to expose his supposed weaknesses, had instead, ironically and unexpectedly, solidified his place as something far more profound, far more meaningful than just a supremely talented soccer player. It had cemented his legacy as a true champion, not just on the field, but in the far more important arena of character and quiet dignity. And as Salah sat at home that night, sipping tea with his family, the warmth of their love and quiet pride enveloping him like a comforting blanket, he knew, with a deep and unwavering certainty, one fundamental truth. No matter what challenges, what controversies, what unexpected storms life might throw his way, he would always, always let his actions speak louder than any words. Mohamed Salah's story, in the end, is so much more than just a story about soccer. It's a powerful, enduring tale about resilience, about quiet dignity, and about the enduring power of proving your true worth, not through grumpy pronouncements or fleeting moments of fame, but through consistent actions, unwavering dedication, and the quiet, unyielding strength of character that truly defines a champion. If this story has inspired you, if you've found resonance in Salah's quiet strength and unwavering dignity, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our community for more powerful tales of true champions, stories of resilience and triumph that will uplift and inspire you in your own journey. And please, tell us in the comments below, what did you think of Salah's response? Would you have handled that incredibly challenging interview in the same way? Your support, your comments, your engagement truly helps us bring more incredible, life-affirming stories to life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless you, and remember, let your actions always speak louder than your words.